So I have now pressed the record button. I think pretty much everybody's already done this, but if you can kind of keep your microphone muted for the duration of Peter's speech, for his talk, his presentation, it just kind of prevents any background interference. So the pattern of things is going to be, so very soon I'll introduce and pass over to Peter, and then he's going to speak for about 30-40 minutes. And then we may then, if Peter McLaren arrives, then we'll kind of pass over briefly to Peter for him to have a kind of brief contribution to this seminar as well. So that should leave us with about 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes thereabouts for questions and discussion at the end. So the best way to kind of pose a question as Peter is speaking, if a question springs to mind, please feel free to use the conversation function, so you can pose a question in there, and either you or I can ask the question at the end. Also, at the end, there is a kind of wavy hand function. So if you want to personally ask a question at the end, press the kind of wavy hand button, and I'll invite you in to ask your question, and we'll take it from there. So, without further ado, so we have potentially two extremely high-profile critical pedagogues to speak for us tonight. I'm not good at multitasking. I keep having to let people in, which interrupts my speaking. Anyway, so two high-profile critical pedagogues. So we've got Petar Jandrić, who is a professor of informatics at the University of Applied Sciences at Zagreb, and also a visiting professor at the University of Wolverhampton. Peter's recent works are Knowledge Socialism, The Rise of Peer Production, Collegiality, Collaboration and Collective Intelligence, and also Postdigital Dialogues on Critical Pedagogy, Liberation Theology and Information Technology, and that was written in conjunction with Professor Peter McLaren. So that's my introduction. So I'm going to pass over to Peter for the presentation bit. So over to you, sir.
Can you share my screen, please? Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. So I've spotlighted you. I think you should already have the share screen function. There's an icon at the top, which should be like a TV screen with an arrow pointing to it.
Okay.
That should allow you.
Just a sec. Share. Okay, can you see me now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you very much, Craig. Well, I would like to thank you, of course, Craig and Michael and others and the organizers for inviting me to get to this talk, and to Peter McLaren for his hopefully guest appearance, which is going to arrive later. And of course, to everyone in the audience who found the time to join in today. I mean, in our COVID-19 world, where online talks proliferate so much that it's impossible to attend all events of interest, I really appreciate that you took the time to be with us here today. As we talk here in mid-November, the COVID-19 pandemic approaches its first anniversary, and reflecting on our early experiences of the pandemic, I cannot but notice significant changes in my thinking and feeling over the past months. So during first lockdowns in springs, the pandemic seemed like a terrible event that I needed to get over with. Yet my bad feelings have somehow been strongly alleviated by a tremendous sense of local and global solidarity. And the crisis felt like a unique historical opportunity for desperately needed changes in global capitalism. As we approach the end of this year, many of these solidarity projects continue, yet I'm just exhausted. And I know that I'm not the only one. So beginning with our ambiguous and precarious situation, I believe that the humankind now needs to collectively develop more sustainable and just ways of being. And this is a cognitive and affective project. We need critique and criticism as well as courage, creativity, imagination, hope, and organization. We need new goals and new practical measures towards reaching these goals. Within new utopias, new pedagogical and political programs, designs, and experiments that fit our pandemic age and the Anthropocene. And in this talk, I will argue that critical pedagogy can help us develop such utopias and political programs. Paulo Freire once famously said that education is both technical and scientific training as well as dreams and utopias. However, mainstream critical pedagogy tends to view the research fields and is concerned with the effects of digital media and other technologies on the existing activities of teaching, learning, and education, thus continuing to assume a clear division between an authentic educational practice and the imposition of an external and novel technology. What I will argue in this talk, the technical and scientific aspects of the human condition are mutually constitutive with critical pedagogy. Therefore, mainstream critical pedagogy needs to significantly reinvent itself in order to meet the post-digital challenge. I would like to start this with a short biographical note. My first interests and my first degree was in physics, and it was only after a few years of working in physics and informatics that I learned about critical pedagogy. And learning about critical consciousness, relationships between education and class, and so on, was so liberating. Yet I almost immediately began to wonder, why don't critical pedagogies engage with technologies a bit more seriously? And since then, I embarked on a mission to connect my love for critical pedagogy with my love for science and technology. About 10 years ago, Peter McLaren and I embarked on a series of conversations about critical pedagogy fit for our present times. Unlike many founding figures, and even younger members of the critical pedagogy movement, who stubbornly keep to Freirean ideas and doctrines, Peter has always been open for exploring the intersections between critical pedagogy and technology. Over the years, Peter and I published many articles together, and what you see on the screen, on the right-hand side of the screen, is the book of our dialogues published only a few months ago. So these efforts with Peter and other colleagues have been really productive. Yet over the years, I started to realize their limitations. I mean, we can write as many books and articles as humanly possible, but our ideas will be truly productive only if considered seriously by other people. And academic publications have a very limited reach. I mean, we need a stronger voice, and that implies development of a wider community. So in 2018, with a group of closest academic friends, I founded Postdigital Science and Education Journal and Book Series. The concept of the Postdigital is quite complex, and I don't have enough time in this presentation to give you my usual half-hour introduction. At this point, I think that it suffices to say that the Postdigital is a gathering concept which takes into account critical pedagogy and science and technology in equal measure. So having published more than 200 academic papers over the past couple of years, the post-digital science and educational community gets stronger by the day. And as the editor of the journal and the book series, I have a bird's eye of themes and ideas at the intersections of critical pedagogy and technology. And this brings me to the core to today's presentation. It what follows, I will distill the main post-digital challenges of our contemporary critical pedagogy, and I will also offer some signposts for addressing them. Before I move on, I really need to thank the organizers, and especially Professor Michael Thomas, who pushed me towards the topic of today's talk. When Michael asked me to give a talk about the post-digital challenge of critical pedagogy, I realized that I never published something of that kind, which is really interesting. And soon after, Derek Ford and I started writing an article. So Derek and I also decided to develop this work further, so the article will serve as an invitation for our new edited book in Post-Digital Science and Education book series, which is now provisionally entitled Post-Digital Eco-Pedagogies. So today I present our work in progress, which really started with the invitation to give this talk. I will try to be short, and I very much look forward to your feedback during discussions, which will surely help us to develop this article in the book. During the past few decades, much of political pedagogy has either ignored emerging techno-social challenges or has approached them using one or another determinist and instrumentalist position. However, in the meantime, philosophers such as Andrew Feenberg, Christian Fuchs, and many others have built on the body of work from Karl Marx to the Frankfurt School of Social Science and developed some nuanced approaches to human relationships with today's technologies. So in the context of scientific research, critical philosophy of technology gave birth to the field of inquiry called Science and Technology Studies, or STS. STS explores complex relationships between culture, politics, technological innovation, and society. It claims that all knowledge and technology is socially constructed and reaches all the way into questions pertaining to collective decision-making, including but not limited to democracy. A prominent theme in STS is Garrett Hardin's concept of the tragedy of the commons and its applications to emergent commons such as the internet. Recent developments in STS look into transformations such as commodification and assetization of various public goods. And STS research reaches all the way to the nature of human beings and often develops various post-humanist and transhumanist approaches. Insights from critical pedagogy of technology and science and technology studies, of course, are crucial for various central questions of critical pedagogy, such as development of a realistic understanding of power structures and techno-social relationships which shape today's society, critical epistemologies, struggles against various forms of epistemicide, development of self-reflective solidarity, and so on. During our constant interactions with various digital systems, we produce huge streams of data. And these large streams, often called big data, feed algorithmic artificial intelligence systems, which are provided by human programmers with some initial rules of behavior, and then they are taught by large data sets. And then, computer independently establishes various connections between input data and produces intelligent solutions to new problems in non-predetermined ways. So this interplay between big data and algorithms is used to sell us products, calculate our taxes, eligibility for social and other services. It's used to monitor our health, assess our students, and so on. Algorithmic processes are far from neutral, as the complex systems of data production and representation co-constitute the very systems they purport to describe. And in this process, they often embed, replicate, or reinforce pre-existing attitudes and prejudices. So depending on their focus, authors describe these changes using various names, including data capitalism, algorithmic capitalism, communicative capitalism, surveillance capitalism, techno-scientific capitalism, high-tech and low-pay capitalism, and so on. Yet the common thread concerns the changing relationships of knowledge within capitalism and the way that knowledge, even oppositional and critical knowledge, can be captured within the circus of surplus production. Critiques of capitalism have always been at the heart of critical pedagogy. And post-digital critical pedagogy, of course, needs to seriously grapple with the emerging forms of capitalism and their connections with data and algorithms. During the second half of the 20th century, we slowly but surely digitized all traditional information sources, like books, music, films, even the human genome. And these days, there's not much left to be digitized, so the focus to digitization has taken a U-turn. In 2018, Craig Venter described this shift in the quote on your screens. But in his 2012 presentation, which is called What is Life? A 21st Century Perspective, Venter responds to his own questions, and he says, we can digitize life, and we can generate life from the digital world. Scientists send digital code to each other instead of sending genes or proteins. It's faster and cheaper to synthesize a gene than to clone it, or even to get it by Federal Express. What a crazy thought. So these scientific developments are inextricably linked with political economy. We now live in the age of bioinformational capitalism based on the self-organizing and self-replicating code that harnesses both the results of the information and new biology revolutions and brings them together in a powerful alliance that enhances and strengthens or reinforces each other. So in our pandemic times, the idea that various techno-social systems such as codes and ecosystems in information, publishing, education, and emerging knowledge systems can be described using our insights into viral behavior now also attracts a lot of attention. Bioinformation, its emerging political economy, and viral behavior of many social phenomena, of course, are crucial for development of new critical pedagogies. While critical pedagogy projects have generally engaged with critiques of capitalism, others have insisted on the international, global, or transnational nature of capitalism and its intrinsic relationships to colonialism and imperialism. Sandy Grande, for instance, builds on a revolutionary critical pedagogy, particularly that of Peter McLaren, while acknowledging and cautioning how concepts of development and progress based on linear chronology can exclude and dismiss indigenous cultures as primitive or pre-capitalist entities. And indeed, such a caution and critique could be waged against many strands of post-digital scholarship if they don't acknowledge the uneven development and impact of digital technologies, including their production, distribution, use, and impacts. Karim Malot importantly shows that struggle for socialism entails, at its very core, the struggle for the self-determination of oppressed nations. These struggles must not be ignored or condemned, but rather understood as an inspiration for our own struggles. It is interesting to know that Freire himself has also taken this perspective, not only by calling on Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, Fidel Castro, and Che Guevara in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, but also in his Pedagogy in Process, Letters to Guinea-Bissau, where he looked to the pedagogy of Amilcar Cabral. So confirming Malot's thesis is the notable absence of consideration of these key works of Freire in the North American mainstream critical pedagogy tradition, although there have been important exceptions, such as, again, the works of Peter McLaren. Feminism is a broad concept which includes a wide range of theories, social movements, and practices aimed at gender equality. History of feminism can be broadly classified into 4 waves, and starting around 2012, the 4th wave of feminism is still nascent. For now, its main contours include the focus to technology and intersectionality. Contemporary technological innovations such as social media now allow feminists in the 4th wave to take up the micropolitics of the 3rd wave while situating their individual lived experiences within broad global discourses. Hence, in recent years, we have seen a rise in the number of collective movements based on social, economic, and political agendas. Probably the best example of the resistance and challenges to sexism, patriarchy, and other forms of oppression via feminist uptake of digital communication is, of course, the Me Too movement, which has significantly expanded the traditional limits of feminist activism. Major contributions of the 4th wave of feminism to popular discourse also includes the development of new terms, such as mansplaining, which is, of course, based on Rebecca Solnit's recent book, Men Explain Things to Me. However, extensive use of the internet brings about a mixed bag of positive and negative influences. For instance, the 4th wave of feminism is strongly subject to the network effect, which creates a celebrity culture based on principles of viral modernity. Furthermore, in Anything Goes online spaces, feminism became just one of many possible identities, and these identities become bought and sold in the marketplace that increasingly promoted the pink pound and the female empowerment alongside the plethora of other lifestyle masculinities and feminities. In its mainstream instances, the 4th wave of feminism has thus become co-constitutive with new capitalisms. However, the 4th wave of feminism also reaches beyond mere expansion of traditional feminist struggle into new media. In the verse of Harriet Kimball Rye, the 4th wave of feminism addresses the limits of materialism, the need to turn from concerns about me to concerns for the planet and all its beings, and the sense that for all of us in the 4th wave, what is most important is to put ourselves in the service of the world. And it is with this interest, as exemplified in the work of Rye, that the 4th wave of feminism directly speaks to the bioinformational challenge of new capitalisms, viral modernity, critical posthumanism and transhumanism, and other, of course, interests of new post-digital critical pedagogies. Intermixing significantly with the trajectories in the former sections, Black and anti-racist scholarship has insisted on the centrality of racial categories within the knowledge, research, and pedagogy, although it has predominantly centered on the US and Western education. From critical race theories that challenge liberal multiculturalist education to critical whiteness studies and abolitionist pedagogy, racism and white supremacy can no longer be viewed as incidental or personal. At the same time, the proliferation and transformation of intersectionality theory has productively disrupted and reconfigured the scholarship. So the extent to which research in this trajectory has accurately or inaccurately interpreted identity politics and intersectionality is, of course, up to debate. However, significant educational scholarship focused on identity, privilege, and oppression continues to proliferate. Such scholarship identifies racist and identity-based oppression as foundational to the personal structures and systems and their abolition. This is an educational project within and beyond school. I'm going to give you a really nice example. Today's mass incarceration in the US is a means of absorbing and controlling the surplus population, particularly that sector that has challenged the capitalist system over the past half century of African American people. So this absorption and control are now fully post-digital, with the prison no longer confined to the designated spaces, but spreading throughout society through things such as the ankle monitors. The shape and components of racist and identity-based ecosystems are inescapable and urgent problems for post-digital critical pedagogy. Post-humanism is a common name for a wide array of theories which reject human dominance and offer human uniqueness in nature. It responds to the crisis in historicity, rejects generality of human knowledge, and is strongly interested in the boundaries of our understanding of the human. Transhumanism accepts many features of posthumanism, yet retains human exceptionalism. So transhumanism is an extension of the humanist project, whereas posthumanism is critical of humanism. Critical posthumanism focuses on the intersections between human and non-human agency and conceptualizes knowledge and capacities as being emergent from the webs of interconnections between heterogeneous entities, both human and non-human. For Rosie Braidotti, for instance, what makes human studies critical has to do with its relationships to the developments in capitalism. When the human and non-human become collective thinking subjects, they create forms and subjects of knowledge that cannot fully be captured by the sheer speeds and acceleration of capital. While projects of critical post-humanism have a long history in educational theory and practice, over the last few decades they've gained increasing prominence in a range of subdisciplines. So it's not just a decentering of the student-teacher relationship or the inclusion of non-human actors as pedagogical agents that's pursued, but the complete reconceptualization and reorganization of the educational processes overall. And indeed, during and after the COVID-19 lockdowns, the digital communication is at its historical peak, like in this talk today. These new contours are crucial for the development of post-digital critical pedagogies. The emergence of critical disability studies has been very important for critical pedagogy. Critical disability studies have originally been situated within the distinction between the medical model of disability, which locates disability as a problem within the individual, and the social model of disability, which locates disability as the organization of society that turns an impairment into a disability. However, the field has long time ago moved beyond this binary. While the social model is generally recognized as having political utility, many have critiqued the model for its rigid separation of the material and the social. In our post-digital condition, we can think of disability as a relation between all humans, and we might add non-humans as well. It's a relation in which we are all implicated. Moreover, disability can be considered not as another identity, but as the matrix for which identity-based oppression occurs by placing certain groups closer to or further from the human. Anthropometric technologies, now full of post-digital, continue to produce ontological hierarchies of being, orders of exclusion, and indeed differential inclusion. These hierarchies and orders also produce surplus value for bioinformational capitalism. After all, the demonstration of capacity, citizenship, and so on, created by capitalist demands for efficiency, production, and exchange value. As such, post-digital critical pedagogies should not be organized as development processes of acquiring knowledge. Rather, post-digital critical pedagogies should explore our conceptions of knowledge. So the question is, what would happen if critical pedagogies took up this historical materialist and internationalist challenge to knowledge and intelligence, or theory of virology? The notion of queer has been taken up, or some may say reclaimed, as an identity. Yet an expansive body of literature foregrounds queerness as that which can never be an identity, but can only ever disturb identity. This virality of queerness continues to infect queer theory, even in that what are considered the founding works. Resisting the certainty of knowledge and embracing the opacity and unknowingness that queerness can't help but inaugurate, post-digital critical pedagogies can find a curriculum for getting and failing, allowing us to access other modes of relating, belonging, and caring. And these utopian potentialities are not prophetic, but they're properly messianic, and they have a lot to offer to post-digital critical pedagogy. The first documented use of the term post-digital originated in aesthetic theory. In 2000, Kim Kaskon coined the term as a result of the fact that the revolutionary period of the digital information age has surely passed, and digital technologies no longer significantly disturb life. Post-digital aesthetics take up the ways in which the post-digital era transforms the production, distribution, and reception of artistic works and practices. Do we today, as Michael Hart and Antonio Negri put in The Empire, increasingly think like computers? Or, because we create computers, do computers think like we do? This is a great question, yet to return to Bredotti's challenge, what remains unthought here is the subject of the site and the separation of the machine from the human or animal, let alone the relationships between the two. According to Jacques Rancière, pedagogy and educational processes more generally are always aesthetic processes in that they concern what we can sense and not sense, as well the organization of sensibility, orders of intelligibility, or distribution of the sensible. So here, the possibilities of critical pedagogies to embrace the aesthetic opens up a variety of important pursuits with pedagogical and political consequences. Pursuing this line of thought and engaging aesthetics more broadly as a zone of indeterminacy and uncertainty for our age, post-digital critical pedagogies can help attune education, politics, and research to the vast and complex ecologies that act on, inform, and transform our senses and perceptions. This is true not only for other than human voices, but for those human voices deprived from recognition and those forms of discourse and matter that appear beyond the sensible. Science fiction has anticipated many inventions such as submarines, space travel, and the internet. According to Paul Levinson, if you look at the history of science, you will find science fiction as its profound backdrop. This relationship is two-directional because science fiction inspires science and also has to be based on science. So the interplay between science and science fiction is a trajectory of progress. Refining the thought, Mackenzie Vogt says that science fiction enables a conversation between times and disciplines. This argument extends beyond the narrow genre of science fiction and encompasses various other forms of fictional thinking. A more systematic approach can be found in the area of future studies. Seminal books in the area, such as Alvin and Adelaide Toffler's Future Shock or Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near, reach beyond the theoretical appeal of literature and have a wide range of applications. There are three perspectives on how the future is planned for: the predictive empirical, the cultural interpretative, and the critical post-structural. In the case of COVID-19, for instance, the predictive empirical perspective would consist of predicting future pandemics and developing appropriate responses. The cultural interpretive perspective would consist of culturally sensitive interpretations of future pandemics and their responses. And the critical post-structural perspective would focus to pandemic power relationships and politics. In the critical post-structural perspective, instead of the search for the objective or the grand design of things, the real is made political. It is historicized and made peculiar. It is no longer seen as being itself as an eternal truth. Responding to inherent messiness and non-predictability of our post-digital existence, science fiction and future studies offer inspiration and years of methodological experience in grappling with the future. In our current pandemic moment, which requires urgent development of new approaches to present and future, this inspiration and experience is crucial for development of new post-digital critical pedagogies. But humans are not just beings of logic, we are also beings of myth and fate. And critical pedagogy has recognized this long time ago, especially for its strong connections with the Latin American tradition of liberation pedagogy. In our book Postdigital Dialogues, Peter and I wrote that the realm of education is the realm of myth, symbol, art, mystery, legend, theater, poetry. Realms where we can delve deeply into the meaning of life. So as we need to understand the world in order to change it, liberation theology needs social science as much as social science needs theology. This is a hard pill to swallow for die-hard Marxists, which cling to the idea that all religion is opium for the people. Thusly, liberation theology has created some deep divides within the critical pedagogy movement.